The champagne flute slipped from Elise Morgan's fingers before she could catch it, shattering against the marble floor of their penthouse apartment. The crystalline explosion barely registered in her mind as she stared at the photograph on her husband's phone. "Elise? What happened? Are you okay?" James's voice came from somewhere far away, though he stood just across their expansive living room. His worried expression appeared genuine, his blue eyes widening with concern as he rushed toward her, crunching glass beneath his Italian leather shoes. She had picked up his phone when it buzzed, something she'd done 1,000 times before. An ordinary gesture in a 12-year marriage. But the message preview showed a photo, James with his arm around a woman Elise had never seen, a small girl with his dimpled smile perched on his shoulders. "Happy anniversary, my love. 6 beautiful years. Emma misses her daddy." "Who are they?" Elise's voice was steady, unnervingly calm, even to her own ears. She turned the phone toward him, her hand trembling slightly. James froze mid-step, color draining from his face. For the first time in their marriage, Elise watched him struggle for words. In that suspended moment, their life together, the gallery openings, the Sunday brunches, the plans for children they'd never quite gotten around to, crystallized into something brittle and false. "Elise, I can explain," he finally said, reaching for the phone. She pulled it back, clutching it like a lifeline. "I'm sure you can," she whispered. "You've always been good with explanations." 6 months earlier. To James Morgan, financial wizard and the best husband a woman could ask for, Diane raised her martini glass, her bold red lipstick leaving a perfect imprint on the rim. And to Elise, my brilliant best friend who somehow manages to run Chicago's hottest new art gallery while putting up with this workaholic. The small group gathered at table 52 laughed, clinking glasses across the white tablecloth. It was James's 45th birthday, and Elise had arranged a dinner with their closest friends. She watched her husband accept the toast with his trademark charming modesty, the slight duck of his head, the self-deprecating smile that had made her fall for him all those years ago at Northwestern. "I'm the lucky one," James said, his hand finding Elise's under the table and squeezing gently. 12 years together, and she still doesn't realize she could do better. Elise rolled her eyes but smiled. "Don't let him fool you. Behind that humble act is a man who once made me wait in the car while he went back inside to fix a crooked painting on our wall." More laughter. The evening continued perfectly, wine flowing, conversations about gallery openings and market forecasts, vacation plans for Santorini later that year. Looking around the table, Elise felt a swell of contentment. At 38, she had everything: a successful career doing what she loved, a beautiful home, a circle of interesting friends, and a husband who, despite his demanding job, still looked at her the way he had on their first date. Only later, driving home through Chicago's gleaming nightscape, did she notice something off in James's demeanor. His fingers drummed restlessly on the steering wheel of their Audi, his jaw tight beneath his neatly trimmed beard. "Everything okay?" she asked, reaching over to smooth a wrinkle in his suit jacket. Yeah, just thinking about that Anderson portfolio." He flashed her a quick smile. "Boring work stuff. On your birthday? I think the markets can survive without you for one night." She placed her hand on his thigh. "I have one more present waiting at home." His smile widened, but something flickered behind his eyes, a shadow so brief she almost missed it. "Lucky me," he said, catching her hand and bringing it to his lips. When his phone rang, he glanced at it and declined the call without a word. "Who was that?" Elise asked, not because she was suspicious, but out of casual interest. "No one important," James said, turning up the radio slightly. "Probably just work. They know better than to bother me tonight." As James drove on, Elise leaned back in her seat, watching the city lights blur together. She didn't dwell on the call, didn't notice the tension in her husband's shoulders or how his eyes kept flicking to the clock. That was the thing about living inside a glass house. You never noticed the first hairline fracture in the foundation. 3 months earlier. "I'm thinking of expanding the gallery," Elise said, scrolling through property listings on her iPad while James packed for his business trip. "There's a space opening up in River North." The timing would be perfect with the Matsuda exhibition coming in the fall. James emerged from their walk-in closet, two ties draped over his arm. "The blue or the gray?" he asked, holding them up. "The blue brings out your eyes," Elise said automatically. "Did you hear what I said about the gallery?" "Of course," James replied, looping the tie around his collar. "River North. Expansion. Sounds exciting." His movements were practiced, efficient, the routine of a man who spent half his life on the road. "Is the investment sound?" "I've run the numbers. It would stretch us for a year, but the location is worth it." She set down the iPad, studying his face. "You don't seem thrilled." James sighed, turning to face her. "I'm sorry. I'm just preoccupied with this Denver trip. 3 days of non-stop meetings with the Palmer Group." He crossed the room and sat beside her on the bed. "If you've done your homework and you're excited about it, I'm behind you 100%. You've never steered your gallery wrong before." She smiled, reaching up to straighten his perfectly aligned tie, an unnecessary gesture that was more about touch than correction. 3 days isn't so bad. I remember when you'd be gone for weeks." "Those days are behind us," he promised, kissing her forehead. "I told Marcus I'm done with the extended international work. No more Singapore for a month or Frankfurt for 3 weeks." And he was okay with that? He didn't have a choice. James's voice held an edge of finality. "I've put in my time building the firm. I'm here now with you. Present. That's what matters." Elise leaned into him, inhaling his familiar scent of sandalwood and cedar. "I miss you even when you're only gone for a night. You won't even notice I'm gone. You'll be too busy planning your gallery empire." He checked his watch. "I should get going if I want to make my flight." She walked him to the door, where his suitcase stood waiting. Their goodbye kiss was brief but tender, the comfortable affection of a long-term couple. Denver's only a 2-hour flight, she reminded herself as much as him. "Call me when you land." "Always do," he promised, wheeling his suitcase toward the elevator. Elise watched until the doors closed, then returned to their apartment. It felt immediately emptier without James's presence, though his things surrounded her. His books on the shelves, his favorite whiskey on the bar cart, his reading glasses on the side table. On impulse, she opened her calendar app and looked at the dates for James's trip, March 18th to 20th. She scrolled back through previous months, noting patterns in his travel. Chicago to Boston, Chicago to New York, Chicago to Denver. Always the same cities, rotating in a predictable sequence. She had never paid much attention to the rhythm of his business travel before. It was simply the background music of their marriage, a melody so familiar she hardly heard it anymore. A notification popped up on her phone, a text from Diane asking if she was free for lunch tomorrow since the husband is out of town. Elise smiled and confirmed, closing the calendar without another thought. Later that night, James called as promised. "Made it safe. Hotel's nice. Missing you already." "Miss you too," she said, already half asleep. "Love you." "Love you more," he replied, and she believed him completely. 1 month earlier. The first concrete suspicion came not with a dramatic discovery, but with a small inconsistency. Elise was searching for a document in James's home office, tax information they needed for the potential gallery expansion. James had told her it would be in the left drawer of his desk, but after 15 minutes of searching through meticulously organized files, she still couldn't find it. Frustrated, she tried his filing cabinet instead. The bottom drawer stuck slightly, and as she tugged it open, a manila envelope slid from beneath some folders. When she picked it up, a handful of receipts spilled onto the floor. She gathered them up, intending to return them to the envelope, when a restaurant name caught her eye, Maison Laurent. One of the most expensive French restaurants in Chicago, a place they'd gone for their 10th anniversary. But this receipt was dated just 3 weeks ago, a Thursday, when James had been working late. The receipt showed dinner for 2, with a $300 bottle of champagne. Elise stared at it, an uncomfortable feeling settling in her stomach. She told herself there was a logical explanation. A client dinner he'd forgotten to mention. An important business meeting. But why keep the receipt in a personal folder, not with his business expenses? Almost against her will, she examined the other receipts. A jewelry store. A weekend booking at the Four Seasons in Denver, during dates when James had told her he was at a financial conference. A children's boutique with a receipt for a dress, size 6X. Her hands trembled as she slipped everything back into the envelope. She replaced it exactly as she'd found it, then sat in James's leather office chair, her mind racing. This wasn't enough to prove anything, she told herself. There could be innocent explanations for all of it. The jewelry could have been a surprise for her. The hotel booking could be a mistake in the dates. The child's dress was harder to rationalize away. Elise pulled out her phone, her finger hovering over James's contact. She could call him right now, ask him directly. That's what people in honest relationships did when they had concerns. Instead, she set her phone down and opened his laptop. It was password protected, of course, but she knew all his usual combinations: his birth date, their anniversary, his childhood street address. None worked. She stared at the password field, a strange detachment washing over her. After 12 years together, James was using a password she didn't know. When he came home that evening, she said nothing about the receipts. Instead, she watched him more carefully than usual. The way he checked his phone when it buzzed, the slight distraction in his eyes when she talked about her day, the careful vagueness when she asked about his. "I'm thinking about cutting my hair," she said over dinner. "Maybe something dramatically short." "Whatever makes you happy," he replied absently, scrolling through emails on his phone. 5 years ago, when she'd mentioned a similar change, he'd spent 20 minutes trying to talk her out of it, passionately arguing that her long hair was too beautiful to cut. Now, he didn't even look up. That night, as they prepared for bed, she studied their reflection in the bathroom mirror. James moved around her with practiced ease, their nighttime routine a choreographed dance perfected over years. They looked like what they'd always been. The perfect couple. Successful. Attractive. In sync. But for the first time, Elise wondered if they were just two expert actors who had performed the same play for so long they no longer needed to think about their lines. "James," she said softly as they lay in bed, the city lights painting patterns across their ceiling. "Are you happy?" He turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. "Of course I am. Why would you ask that?" "Just checking," she said, offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sometimes I feel like we're so busy with our separate lives, we forget to make sure we're still on the same page." James reached for her hand under the covers. "We're on the same page, Elise. Always have been." He brought her fingers to his lips. "Work's been intense lately, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. About us." She wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. So she nodded and let him pull her close, his heartbeat steady against her cheek. But when his breathing deepened with sleep, Elise remained awake, mentally cataloging every business trip, every late night at the office, every unexplained absence over the past year. And she began to wonder just how many pages of their story he'd written without her. The gallery was Elise's sanctuary. Morgan Contemporary had been her dream since art school, a space showcasing emerging artists alongside established names, curated with her distinctive eye for work that challenged and moved viewers. The clean white walls, polished concrete floors, and soaring industrial ceilings of the converted warehouse space felt more like home than the penthouse she shared with James. "These new pieces from Rodriguez are incredible," Diane said, standing beside Elise in the empty gallery after hours. A bottle of wine sat between them as they reviewed the installation for Friday's opening. "You were right to give him his first solo show." Elise nodded, studying the vibrant canvas before them, a riot of color barely contained by the frame. "His work has matured so much in the past year. There's an urgency to it now, a raw, emotional core." "Speaking of emotional cores," Diane swirled her wine thoughtfully, "you've seemed off lately. Everything okay?" Elise hesitated. She hadn't shared her suspicions with anyone, partly because speaking them aloud would make them real, and partly because she still wasn't certain what exactly she suspected. "James has been distant," she finally said. "Working more. Traveling more." "That's not exactly new," Diane pointed out gently. "He's always been career-focused." It's different this time. Elise moved to another painting, avoiding her friend's perceptive gaze. He's careful around me now. Like he's calculating each response. Diane followed her, wine glass in hand. Have you talked to him about it? And say what? I think you might be lying to me, but I don't know about what. Elise laughed without humor. I sound paranoid even saying it out loud. You don't sound paranoid. You sound like someone who knows her husband. Diane set her glass down. What does your gut tell you? Elise closed her eyes briefly. That something's wrong. That I'm missing something important. She turned to face her friend. I found receipts. A dinner, jewelry, a hotel in Denver on days he was supposed to be at a conference. And a child's dress. Diane's expression sharpened. A child's dress? Size 6X. That's specific. Diane's voice was careful. Did you ask him about it? Not yet. I keep hoping there's an innocent explanation. Elise laughed again, the sound brittle. Maybe he has a secret niece I don't know about. Elise. Diane took her hands. You need to confront him. And, if I'm wrong? Elise pulled away, moving restlessly among the artwork. If I accuse him of something and I'm completely off base, what does that say about me? About us? And, if you're right? Diane countered. What then? The question hung between them, unanswerable. I have to know first, Elise said finally. I need proof, one way or the other. Diane studied her for a long moment. What are you going to do? Elise looked around her gallery. The one place in her life where she had complete control, where her vision was realized exactly as she intended it. I'm going to find out the truth, she said. However ugly it might be. The opportunity came the following week. James announced another trip to Denver, 3 days for a meeting with potential investors. He packed with his usual efficiency, kissed her goodbye at the door, and promised to call that night. Elise watched the door close behind him, then went straight to his office. The manila envelope was still in the filing cabinet where she'd found it. She photographed each receipt carefully, then replaced everything exactly as she'd found it. Next, she opened her laptop and logged into their shared credit card account. James maintained separate cards for his business expenses, but they kept one joint account for household purposes. She downloaded the statements for the past year and began meticulously combing through the transactions. Most were unremarkable groceries, utilities, restaurant meals they'd shared. But patterns emerged in the gaps. Regular charges at a gas station in Evanston, a suburb north of Chicago where James had no business connections. A recurring payment to a children's dance academy. Small purchases at a cafe near Northwestern University every Sunday morning when James supposedly went to the gym. Each discovery was another crack in the foundation of her marriage. She picked up her phone and called the one person she knew could help her take the next step. I need a favor, she said when the call connected. A professional one. 2 hours later, she sat across from Detective Sarah Patel in a coffee shop 10 blocks from her gallery. They weren't friends exactly, but Elise had helped the detective's daughter secure an art school scholarship the previous year, and they'd maintained a cordial relationship since. I wouldn't normally do this kind of work, Sarah said, reviewing the information Elise had compiled. But I owe you for what you did for Maya. I appreciate it, Elise said, her hands wrapped tightly around her untouched coffee. I just need to know if I'm crazy or if... She couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah's expression was professional, devoid of judgment. The Denver hotel dates match his supposed conference. Elise nodded. According to his calendar, yes. And the Evanston connection? None that I know of. We've never lived there, don't have friends there. The detective made a few notes. I'll see what I can find. Give me a few days. She looked up, her eyes softening slightly. Are you prepared for what I might discover? No, Elise admitted. But I need to know anyway. 3 days later, Sarah called. Her voice was carefully neutral. I have information. It's better discussed in person. They met at the same coffee shop. Sarah brought a manila folder of her own, but didn't immediately open it. Before I show you this, she said, I want you to be certain you want to see it. Some things can't be unseen, Elise. Elise's mouth was dry, her heart hammering in her chest. I'm certain. Sarah nodded once, then opened the folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs. James entering a modest two-story house in Evanston. James with a woman, petite, Asian, pretty in an understated way, at a park. And the most devastating, James with the same woman and a little girl, perhaps 6 years old, with his blue eyes and dimpled smile. They were at what appeared to be a school function, James kneeling beside the child, his arm around her small shoulders, expression radiant with pride. Her name is Vanessa Chen, Sarah said quietly. She's a nurse at Evanston Hospital. The girl is Elise Morgan. Birth certificate lists James Morgan as the father. They've lived in that house for 6 years. Neighbors know him as a financial advisor who travels frequently for work. Each word was a body blow. Elise stared at the photos, unable to look away from the little girl's face, the perfect blend of James and this woman Vanessa. A child who should have been a stranger, but who wore her husband's features like a birthright. They're married, Elise said. It wasn't a question. Not legally, Sarah replied. But they wear rings. The neighbors refer to them as married. 6 years. The child would have been conceived right around their 6th wedding anniversary. While Elise had been planning a surprise trip to the Amalfi Coast, James had been starting a second life. There's more, Sarah said reluctantly. Do you want to see it? Elise nodded, beyond words. Sarah produced more photos. James and Vanessa at the jewelry store from the receipt, selecting what appeared to be a necklace. James at the French restaurant with Vanessa, champagne on the table, leaning across to kiss her hand. James pushing Emma on a swing, laughing. He looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. How? Elise managed, her voice barely above a whisper. How did he maintain this for 6 years without anyone knowing? Compartmentalization, Sarah answered. It's more common than you'd think. His work gives him the perfect cover for his absences from both homes. The Evanston neighborhood is insular, mostly academic types from Northwestern who mind their own business. And your social circles don't overlap. Elise closed her eyes, a sudden realization washing over her. Denver. He never goes to Denver for business. He takes them there. That's their family vacation spot. The betrayal was so complete, so meticulously planned and executed, that it took her breath away. The man she'd loved for 12 years, the man she'd built her life around, was a fiction. A performance crafted specifically for her. What do you want to do with this information? Sarah asked gently. Elise looked up, something cold and clear crystallizing within her. Thank you, Sarah. I know what I need to do now. Later that night, her phone rang. James's smiling face appeared on the screen. Hey, beautiful. His voice came through, warm and familiar. Just checking in. How was your day? Elise sat in their darkened living room, the city lights spread out below her like stars. The folder of photographs lay on the coffee table before her. Illuminating, she replied, surprised by the steadiness of her voice. I learned some interesting things today. Oh, yeah? About the new artist you're considering? No. She traced the rim of her whiskey glass. About family dynamics, the sacrifices people make, the lies they tell. There was a pause. Sounds intense. Everything okay? Just thinking about what people are capable of, she said. The human capacity for deception is remarkable, don't you think? Another pause, longer this time. Elise, you're being cryptic. What's going on? How's Denver? She asked instead of answering. The weather good? Yeah. Clear and cool. Why? I was just wondering if Emma enjoys the mountains. Kids her age are so impressionable, aren't they? New experiences really shape them. The silence that followed was absolute. She could almost see him, the rapid calculations behind his eyes, the slight tightening of his jaw, the immediate inventory of what she might know and how she might know it. Elise, he began, his voice carefully controlled. Don't, she cut him off. Don't insult me with more lies, James. I know about Vanessa. I know about Emma. I know about your little house in Evanston and your Sunday morning coffee ritual and the dance academy where Emma takes ballet lessons every Wednesday. When he spoke again, his voice was different, stripped of its usual confident charm. I never meant to hurt you. A laugh escaped her, sharp and painful. That's what you have to say? You've been living a double life for 6 years, and you never meant to hurt me? She took a steadying breath. When are you coming back to Chicago? Tomorrow afternoon, he said, sounding wary. Elise, we should talk about this in person. Oh, we will, she promised. You'll come straight to the penthouse when you land. No stops in Evanston first. Okay, he agreed quickly, too quickly. I'll explain everything. There are factors you don't understand. I understand perfectly, James. More than you can imagine. She reached for one of the photographs, James and Vanessa and Emma, the picture of familial bliss. Enjoy your last night in Denver with your second family. It may be a while before you see them again. She ended the call before he could respond, then turned off her phone completely. Setting down her glass, she picked up the folder and moved through their home, the home that had been the center of her world for so long. In the spare bedroom, she opened the closet where James kept his off-season clothes. Behind the winter coats and summer linens, she found what she was looking for, a locked metal box. She discovered it years ago, but had never thought to question its contents. Now, using the skills Sarah had taught her, she picked the simple lock. Inside were documents, a lease agreement for the Evanston house, insurance policies, Emma's birth certificate with James listed as the father, a passport for Elise Morgan, school records, medical files, college fund statements, and photographs, Emma as a newborn in Vanessa's arms with James looking on adoringly. Emma's first steps, first birthday, first day of school, a complete record of a life James had built parallel to their own. Elise replaced everything except one photograph, Emma's most recent school portrait, the little girl grinning with her father's smile, a front tooth missing. This she slipped into her pocket before relocking the box and returning it to its hiding place. In their bedroom, she packed a small bag with essentials, then called for a car. She wouldn't stay in the penthouse tonight. She couldn't bear to sleep in their bed, surrounded by the artifacts of what she now knew was an elaborate lie. Instead, she went to the gallery. In the small apartment she maintained above the exhibition space for late work nights, she finally allowed herself to break down. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside her, violent and primal, tearing through her body until she was exhausted. When she had no tears left, she washed her face and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman who looked back at her was someone she barely recognized, hollowed out by betrayal, eyes bright with a dangerous clarity. James had built his perfect double life with meticulous care, maintaining two separate worlds that never intersected. He played his role flawlessly, becoming whatever each woman needed him to be. But he'd made one critical miscalculation. He'd underestimated Elise. James arrived at the penthouse the following afternoon looking haggard, his usual polish dulled by stress and a sleepless night. He found Elise waiting for him in the living room, composed and cool in a simple black dress, her dark hair pulled back in a severe knot. Elise, he began, setting down his suitcase. I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it, she interrupted, her voice unnervingly calm. Sit down, James. He hesitated, then sank into the chair across from her. For the first time in their marriage, she saw fear in his eyes. How did you find out? He asked finally. Does it matter? She studied him dispassionately. 6 years, James. 6 years of systematic deception. A second home. A second woman. A child. Her voice caught slightly on the last word. While I was waiting for the right time for us to start a family, you already had one. He leaned forward, running a hand through his disheveled hair. It wasn't planned. Vanessa and it was just supposed to be a brief thing. Then she got pregnant, and I couldn't just abandon her. So you decided to keep us both, Elise said flatly. How generous of you. I love you, Elise. That's never changed. Her laugh was cold. You don't love me, James. You don't even know me. If you did, you'd know I'd never share my husband. I've provided for both of you, he said, a note of desperation entering his voice. I've never shortchanged either home. I've been present for both of you. Present. Elise echoed incredulously. You've been physically present, maybe, But you've been living half a life in each place, calculating every word, planning every absence. That's not presence, James. That's performance. He fell silent, unable to refute the truth. How does it work logistically? She asked, curious despite herself. The holidays? Birthdays? James looked away. I alternate. Christmas Eve with one family, Christmas Day with the other. Work trips for major events I can't split. And they never questioned it? Your convenient business schedule? Vanessa thinks I have an international client base, that I travel abroad regularly. A hint of pride crept into his voice. I've been careful. Thorough. Clearly not thorough enough, Elise observed coldly. James seemed to gather himself, leaning forward with the persuasive intensity that had served him so well in business. Elise, I know I've hurt you unforgivably, but there's an innocent child involved here. Emma has done nothing wrong. No, she hasn't, Elise agreed. You're the only villain in this story, James. Relief flickered across his face. Then you understand why we need to handle this carefully. For Emma's sake. Oh, I understand perfectly. Elise rose, moving to the bar cart where she poured herself a small measure of bourbon. Which is why I've already taken steps to ensure Emma is protected. Wariness returned to James's expression. What does that mean? What have you done? I've contacted Lawrence, she said, naming their attorney. I've filed for divorce, obviously. But I've also arranged for a significant trust to be established for Emma. She'll be provided for through college and beyond. James blinked in surprise. That's incredibly generous. It's not generosity, Elise corrected him. It's responsibility. Something you should understand, given how carefully you've provided for both your families. She sipped her drink. But there are conditions. What conditions? The trust becomes active only after you've confessed everything to Vanessa. The full truth. Your marriage to me. The fact that she's been your second family all along. The color drained from James's face. Elise, you can't. I can, and I will. Her eyes were flinty. She deserves the truth, just as I did. She deserves to know exactly who she's built a life with. It will destroy her, James protested. It will destroy Emma's stability. You should have thought of that before you created this elaborate fiction. Elise set down her glass. You have 24 hours to tell her. If you don't, I will. I have her number, her address, her work schedule. I have everything, James. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. This is vindictive. No, this is justice, she countered. Actions have consequences. Your deception ends now one way or another. And if I refuse, he challenged. If I simply leave here and never come back? Elise smiled thinly. Then I go to Marcus with proof that you've been embezzling from client accounts to maintain your second household. James froze. That's a lie. Is it? The timing of certain withdrawals suggests otherwise. And even if it's not true, an investigation would be devastating for your career. For the firm. She shrugged. It's your choice, James. Tell Vanessa the truth or lose everything. Both families, your career, possibly your freedom. He stared at her, a dawning recognition in his eyes. You've changed. No, she corrected him. You just never knew who I really was. You were too busy crafting your own narrative to see me clearly. James sank back into the chair, defeat evident in every line of his body. What do you want from me, Elise? Really? I want you to experience what I'm feeling right now, she said simply. I want you to watch the life you've built crumble around you. I want you to face the consequences of your choices. She moved toward the door. 24 hours, James. Then I step in. Where are you going? He asked, a note of panic in his voice. I'm staying at the gallery for now. I'll have movers collect my things next week. She paused at the threshold. Oh, and I've frozen our joint accounts. The penthouse is in my name, as you may recall. You have until the end of the month to find alternative accommodations. You're leaving me with nothing, he realized. Not nothing, she corrected. I'm leaving you with the truth. It's more than you ever gave me. Diane found Elise in the gallery the next morning, methodically rearranging a display for the upcoming exhibition. You didn't answer any of my calls last night, her friend said, setting a coffee on the pedestal beside her. I was worried. I needed space to think, Elise replied, adjusting the lighting on a sculpture. And? What happened with James? Elise straightened, meeting her friend's concerned gaze. I confronted him. He admitted everything. Oh, Elise. Diane's face crumpled with sympathy. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Elise said, her voice steady. It needed to happen. The truth needed to come out. What are you going to do now? Exactly what I've always done. Run my gallery. Create a space for art that matters. She picked up the coffee, inhaling its rich aroma. And rebuild my life, my real life, not the fiction James constructed around me. Diane studied her with worried eyes. You seem almost calm. I am calm, Elise confirmed. For the first time in months, I see things clearly. No more doubts, no more second-guessing myself. She gestured around the gallery. This is real. My work is real. The life I build from here will be real. And James? His other family? By now, he should be having a very difficult conversation with Vanessa, Elise said, checking her watch. I gave him 24 hours to tell her everything, but I suspect he won't wait that long. He knows I mean what I say. Diane's eyes widened. You're forcing him to confess to her? I'm forcing him to tell the truth, Elise corrected. Something he should have done years ago. Won't that be devastating for his daughter? Elise's expression softened slightly. Emma will be provided for. I've made sure of that. Children are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. She'll adjust to her new reality, just as I'm adjusting to mine. Diane shook her head in wonder. I don't know if I could be so composed in your position. This isn't composure, Elise said quietly. This is survival. She turned back to the exhibition, adjusting a painting's position by millimeters. Besides, there's a certain satisfaction in watching someone's carefully constructed lies collapse around them. Revenge, you mean? Justice, Elise corrected. There's a difference. Before Diane could respond, Elise's phone rang. The screen showed a number she didn't recognize. Excuse me, she said, stepping away to answer. Hello. Is this Elise Morgan? A woman's voice, strained and tearful. Elise's breath caught in her throat. Yes. Is this Vanessa? A small, broken laugh came through the line. So you do exist. James told me everything this morning. About you. About your marriage. About our. She couldn't continue. I'm sorry, Elise said, and meant it. I only learned the truth myself 2 days ago. 6 years, Vanessa said, her voice hollow with disbelief. 6 years of my life. Emma's entire life. All built on lies. I know exactly how you feel, Elise replied softly. There was a long pause. He said you established a trust for Emma. Why would you do that? Because she's innocent in all of this. And because I know what it's like to have your future suddenly uncertain. Another pause. He's gone, Vanessa said finally. He packed a bag and left after he told me. Said he needed time to think. Time. She gave a bitter laugh. As if we haven't given him enough of our time already. Do you know where he went? Elise asked, curious despite herself. No. And I don't care. Vanessa's voice hardened. I thought you should know. That he told me. That it's over. Thank you for calling, Elise said. If you or Emma need anything. We won't. Vanessa cut her off. No offense, but I never want to hear the name Morgan again. The line went dead. Elise stared at her phone for a long moment before returning to Diane, who watched her with concerned eyes. Vanessa? Diane guessed. Elise nodded. James told her everything, then disappeared. Where do you think he went? I don't know, Elise admitted. And for the first time in 12 years, I don't need to know. 3 days later, Marcus Whitaker arrived at the gallery just before closing. Elise recognized him immediately, James's business partner, a tall, distinguished man with prematurely silver hair and shrewd eyes. She'd shared countless dinners with him over the years, discussing everything from market trends to Italian cinema. "Marcus," she greeted him, extending her hand. "This is unexpected. I apologize for dropping in unannounced," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "I was hoping we could talk privately." She led him to her office at the back of the gallery, a sleek space overlooking the Chicago River. "I assume this is about James," she said, offering him a seat. Marcus nodded, his expression grave. "He's missing, Elise. He hasn't been to the office in 4 days. He's not answering calls or emails. His assistant is in a panic." "I'm not surprised," Elise said, pouring 2 glasses of water from the carafe on her desk. His carefully constructed world just collapsed around him. "He's probably licking his wounds somewhere." Marcus's eyebrows rose at her tone. "I take it you know about his situation." "If by situation you mean his 6-year deception, his second family in Evanston, and his daughter Emma, then yes, I'm fully aware." She handed him a glass. "The question is, how long have you known?" Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I suspected something was off about 2 years ago. The pattern of his absences, certain inconsistencies in his stories." He sighed heavily. "I confronted him last year, and he admitted everything." "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" Elise's voice was dangerously soft. "It wasn't my place to interfere in your marriage," Marcus said defensively. James swore he was working toward a resolution. "A resolution?" Elise repeated incredulously. What kind of resolution could there possibly be for maintaining 2 separate families? Was he planning to introduce us at some point? Have us share holidays? Marcus winced. I don't think he ever had a clear endgame. He just kept going, maintaining both lives because he couldn't bear to lose either one. "Well, now he's lost both," Elise said flatly. "Vanessa knows everything. Our marriage is over. And apparently, his career may be in jeopardy as well." "That's why I'm here," Marcus admitted. "The firm is facing scrutiny from regulators. An anonymous tip suggested financial improprieties. The timing is suspicious." Elise smiled thinly. "How unfortunate." Marcus studied her with new respect. "You did it. You're dismantling his life piece by piece." "I simply revealed the truth," she corrected. "James built his life on lies. It was bound to collapse eventually." "What do you want, Elise? Money? Control of the firm? What will it take to call off the regulators?" She laughed, genuinely amused. "I don't want anything from James or from your firm. I have my gallery, my reputation, my own success." She leaned forward. "The regulatory investigation wasn't my doing, Marcus. But I'm not surprised it's happening. When someone maintains such elaborate deceptions in one area of their life, it rarely stays contained." Marcus didn't look convinced. "If you hear from him—" "I won't," she interrupted with certainty. "James knows better than to contact me." After Marcus left, Elise remained in her office, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and amber. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "I never meant to hurt you. I loved you both in different ways. Maybe someday you'll understand. James." She could almost hear his voice, that persuasive tone he used when trying to rewrite reality to suit his needs. She deleted the message without responding, then turned back to her computer, where the plans for her gallery expansion awaited her attention. The future stretched before her, uncertain, yes, but authentically hers. 6 months later, the expanded Morgan Contemporary Gallery buzzed with opening night energy. The River North space had been transformed under Elise's vision, the original industrial bones now complemented by strategic architectural interventions, creating a flow that guided visitors through carefully curated exhibition spaces. "You've outdone yourself," Diane said, appearing at Elise's elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "Everyone's talking about the Matsuda installation." Elise accepted the glass with a smile, surveying the crowd of art collectors, critics, and Chicago's cultural elite mingling beneath the soaring ceilings. "He deserves the attention. His work is extraordinary." "So is yours," Diane countered. "This expansion, the new direction of the gallery, it's all you, Elise." Not entirely me, Elise admitted. Crisis has a way of clarifying priorities. They moved through the space, Elise pausing occasionally to speak with guests or answer questions about the exhibition. She wore a simple black dress that emphasized her lean frame, her dark hair now cut into a sleek bob that framed her face, a physical manifestation of her internal transformation. Near the back of the gallery, in a quieter alcove, a striking installation commanded attention, a house made of shattered glass, illuminated from within. Light fractured through the broken shards, casting prismatic patterns across the walls. Inside the structure, visible through the transparent walls, photographs and documents were suspended, fragments of lives, relationships, memories. A small plaque beside the piece read, "Glass House. Elise Morgan, 2025. Mixed media. Not for sale." It was the only piece in the exhibition created by Elise herself, her first venture into installation art. "It's powerful," a voice said behind her. "Devastating, actually." Elise turned to find a woman studying the installation with intense focus. Vanessa Chin, almost unrecognizable from the photographs Elise had seen months earlier. Her hair was shorter, streaked with subtle highlights, her posture more confident. "Vanessa," Elise said, surprise evident in her voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I wasn't sure I'd come until the last minute," Vanessa admitted. "But when I saw the exhibition announcement in the Tribune, I was curious." Her eyes returned to the glass house. "This is about him, isn't it? About us." "It's about aftermath," Elise said quietly. "About what happens when the structures we build our lives around collapse." Vanessa nodded slowly. "The fragments inside, they're from both lives, aren't they? Both families." "Yes," Elise confirmed. "I wanted to illustrate how separate he kept us, yet how connected we were without knowing it." They stood in silence for a moment, two women brought together by a shared betrayal. "Have you heard from him?" Elise finally asked. "Not directly," Vanessa replied. "His lawyer contacts me about Emma's support payments, which arrive like clockwork. She asks about him sometimes. I never know what to tell her." "What happened with the firm? After the investigation?" "He resigned before any formal charges were filed. Sold his stake to Marcus." Vanessa's mouth twisted in a humorless smile. "Apparently he's in Seattle now, working for a tech startup. A fresh start." "With a fresh story, no doubt," Elise added. Vanessa studied her with curious eyes. "You seem at peace." "Not peace, exactly," Elise corrected. "But I'm moving forward, creating something new from the wreckage." She gestured around the gallery. "This is mine. Completely mine." "The trust you established for Emma," Vanessa said suddenly. "Thank you for that. It means she won't have to worry about college, whatever happens. She deserves a future uncompromised by her father's choices," Elise said simply. Vanessa hesitated, then reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope. "Emma made this. She asked me to give it to you, if I ever met you." Elise accepted the envelope with surprise. Inside was a drawing, childish but skillful for a 7-year-old, of two women standing beside a little girl, all holding hands. Beneath it in careful printing, "My two families. She knows about you," Vanessa explained. "Not everything, of course, but enough. That you were married to her father before me. That you helped create her trust fund. That you're an important person in her story, even if you've never met." Elise stared at the drawing, something catching in her throat. "Thank you for this." Vanessa nodded. "I should go. The babysitter can only stay until 9. She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. Even the parts that weren't my fault." "I know," Elise said quietly. "I am too." After Vanessa left, Elise remained beside her installation, the drawing still in her hand. The fractured light played across her face, illuminating the fragments of the past while pointing towards something new, something unwritten. She carefully tucked the drawing into her portfolio, then rejoined the flow of the exhibition, moving forward into whatever came next. The penthouse sold 3 weeks later for well above asking price. Elise signed the final paperwork in her lawyer's office, a weight lifting as she relinquished the last physical tie to her marriage. "Congratulations," Lawrence said, gathering the documents. "The proceeds have been transferred to your account as requested." "Thank you," she replied, tucking her copy of the settlement into her briefcase. "And the donation to the Children's Arts Foundation?" "Already processed. Anonymous, as you specified." She nodded, satisfied. Half the proceeds from the penthouse sale had gone to establish a foundation providing arts education to underprivileged children throughout Chicago. The rest would fund her gallery's next phase of expansion, a residency program for emerging artists. As she left the building, her phone rang. An unknown number with a Seattle area code. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Elise. James's voice, once so familiar, now seemed to belong to a stranger. "I heard you sold the penthouse." "News travels fast," she observed coolly. "I'm surprised you're keeping tabs on me." "Old habits," he admitted. "Marcus mentioned it when we spoke last week." She waited, saying nothing. "I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry," he continued into the silence. "Not just for the deception, but for underestimating you. For not seeing who you really were." "That's the irony, isn't it?" she replied. "You were so busy maintaining your performance that you never noticed. I was watching the entire time." "Are you happy, Elise?" he asked suddenly. "With your gallery? Your new life?" She considered the question seriously. "I'm authentic," she said finally. "Everything in my life is real now. No performances, no calculated responses. Just truth." She paused. "Are you? Happy, I mean." A long silence stretched between them. "I'm starting over," he said finally. "Learning to live with just one version of myself. It's challenging." "I'm sure it is," she said, without sympathy. "Goodbye, James." She ended the call and continued down the street toward her gallery, where a new exhibition was taking shape. Her vision, her creation, her truth. Behind her, the past receded like a tide, leaving her standing firmly on new ground.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.